All right, and we are live. Kim Kesting, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to dig into this conversation.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I've got to know quite a few of your colleagues over the years, but listening to your podcast and all the work that you're doing, specifically with mindset, I've been really looking forward to this. So I'm really grateful for you to come on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. How did this all transition and start for you in all the work you do with mindset? Like, when was the shift over into wanting to really focus on this in the coaching world and your practice? And when did it start kind of going full circle into this modality that you work with now?
Yeah, great place to start. So I started a health coaching business in 2018, and that was coming off of my own health and fitness journey. I grew up an athlete and knowing about food because my mom was a nutritionist, but after college, I gained a shit ton of weight. That was all from emotional eating and from like lack of being able to really take care of myself because I was just out of alignment, doing things that weren't lighting me up and just following the path that was set out before me. So I knew that something needed to change and in my life, everything in my life needed to change, but ultimately like I was most unhappy in my body. I just flat out say it. I was like, I was obese and people are like, you know,
Right.
because that
The
word is such
clutching
a
of the
such a
pearls.
like
Yeah.
hard word to say or like hard word to own. And I was like my BMI, I was obese. Like I was, just completely out of shape, completely out of touch with my body, my physical health, all the things. And so with my knowledge growing up of having a mom who's a nutritionist, being an athlete through college, I knew what to do. I was like, I have to get fit. I have to lose this weight. And so I did that. I went on a weight loss journey. I lost 90, maybe 95 pounds, maybe 100 pounds. I don't know. I kind of stopped tracking. And through that journey, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my inner world. I learned a lot about what I actually wanted in my life and how I wanted to show up for the world. And one of the biggest things that was a frustration point in my life was being part of the corporate machine. I was living in Manhattan. I was working in a corporate job. I was just in the rat race and I hated it. I didn't like it. But I didn't know anything else existed. So on my weight loss journey, the women around me specifically were like, how are you doing this? Like, what are you doing? Because I've been trying to lose the same 10 pounds my entire life and I yo-yo up and down, but like you are consistently dropping weight and you're consistently lighting up and you're more alive and you're more excited and you're doing all these awesome things. Like, what are you doing? And and being asked that question to me was like a duh. I was like, duh, I'm going to the gym. I'm
Hmm.
eating better. I'm like taking care of myself. What do you mean? And after being asked so much and after watching all of these people around me respond to what I was doing, I recognized that that wasn't a normal thing. Like it wasn't normal for people to like take full on control of their actions and accountability. Go say, I know what to do about this and I'm going to go do it and then consistently do it over the matter of a handful of years.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, this isn't normal and people don't know how to do this. And I started looking around and seeing how unhealthy people really were. Like I started turning my attention outward to society and realizing how unhealthy people were. And as I got down the rabbit hole of food quality and understanding more about how the body works and getting deeper into different styles of fitness and working with coaches and feeling like and feeling the benefits and the results, I was like, I need to teach this to people. Like, oh my God, I'm fascinated by it. I'm passionate about it. I've had such a massive success for myself. It's lit me back up in life. And I was watching, and again, in New York City, fitness industry is booming, right? Coaches are everywhere. Like you can work with personal trainers and nutrition coaches and group fitness instructors, and that's their full-time job. So to me, I was like, oh my God, I can do this. Like I can make this happen. I can quit my job and I can be a coach. So I started to work with mentors who were full-time coaches. I started to like ask questions of them how they did it. And I started my coaching business alongside my corporate job and turned it into my full-time gig. And so I left the corporate job because that was the weight that was really like that was the weight I really needed to let go
Hmm.
of.
Yeah.
and and I full sended my life into coaching and health and wellness. And so when I did that, the you know I started working with clients and I was so eager to teach them and I was so like excited to share what I knew and I was excited to help people change. And ultimately, what I learned in my first couple of years of coaching was that it wasn't enough just to know about macros and food quality and how to program workouts and how to like that wasn't it. Like I was like, that's what people need to do, but that's not what gets them to change. Like I have to address the story in their head. I have to get
Mm.
into their thoughts and their emotions and their feelings. And then that set me down a journey of like, well, why was I able to do that and
Right.
other people aren't? And so it put me back to like, okay, what worked? What worked for me on the journey? Well, I journaled a lot. I talked myself into being consistent and committed. I really like put my energy and attention there. And I wouldn't have said it this way at that time before I learned what I know now and what I teach now. I changed my story and I committed to that story and I did it. So I was able to follow through on it solidly and fully. And that was the thing that most people couldn't do. They couldn't change their story. So enter into the conversation Mark England, who was my first mentor in this work and now business partner. And he like articulated things and demonstrated things about mindset that I had never seen done before. And I needed those tools in my coaching business. I needed them. I was trying to give my clients answers. I was trying to show up and explain to them what they needed to do different. And I was trying to give them advice. I wasn't
Mhm.
actually coaching them. And so I learned from Mark and it just blew the roof off of the place for me because I finally had tools to systemize what I was already doing for myself. And then I had the tools to take that into my sessions with my clients. And instantly, and when I started using it, women I'd been working with for a handful of months, all of a sudden, and not getting anywhere, right? Like, and then one session, the boom, breakthrough because I'm
Mhm.
using the Enlifted method. And then I started and I started feeling better as a coach because all of a sudden I could see like, wow, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. Wow, I was experiencing a lot of imposter syndrome. Wow, I was getting emotionally entangled with my clients rather than creating space to guide them. Like I was too invested in the
Mhm.
conversation, and I was too attached because when their stories and experiences showed up so similarly to my stories and experiences in life, it was like I needed to tell them what I did. I didn't need to help it wasn't about me trying to help them figure out what they wanted to do with it. It was like, well, this is what worked for me. And so here's the advice I'd
Right.
give. And that's not good coaching, right? Like that's not what they're paying you for. So when I really started learning the Enlifted method, it was like, holy shit, this is something else. And I'm growing significantly because of it. And I'm experiencing these big breakthroughs because of it. And Mark had invited me to have a conversation with Adam, who's the other co-founder of the business, because he knew I did some marketing work. He knew I was good at Instagram. And he was like, hey, we want to hire somebody to do this. Like, you love this work. You understand it. You've done it before. Like, let's have a conversation and see if you want to join the team. And at the time, it was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like I'm finally doing all the things I want to be doing. like I finally got it figured out. Like I want to be doing this. I want to be shifting women's stories and I want to help them with food and I want to help them with their self-confidence and self-love. And I want to dig in on that. And I was also managing a boutique fitness studio in Brooklyn called Row House at the time too. This is right before the pandemic shut everything down. So I was like, I was doing what I wanted to be doing in coaching, but I was also like getting into the element of business where I wanted to go because I wanted to be in a physical studio. I wanted to work with people. I wanted to have the vision was that I would work on mind, body, and spirit, right? It would be the mindset work, the physical work, the food, and also things like meditation and mindfulness and personal development work. And so I was like, no, I'm not this Enlifted thing. Like, no, like whatever. I'll have a conversation with them and I'll just like give them I'll tell them what I know. I'll tell them like I love the guys. I love the thing. Like I'll have a conversation and tell them what I know and then that will help them hire somebody else. and, and I left the phone call with a job. So it was one of those pieces that um it was a detour in the path, but as soon as I got into the conversation, I was like, oh, no, 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 this isn't a detour. This is just a different path on the same journey. And this is
Mm.
actually me hitting the express lane because now I get to take this over here and teach what I love to other practitioners and coaches who can have the same impact and breakthroughs with their clients that I'm having and help them get through the imposter syndrome, help them get through the know-it-all coaching, help them get through those parts that make them feel unfulfilled in their job because they care so much and they're not getting the results. I was like, whoa, 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 this is the express lane. I can go over here and I can teach this to other coaches and I can have way more of an impact than I would ever in my own personal coaching practice. And so that's what I did. And so for the last 4 years, I've been working with the guys to build our brand and to teach practitioners and coaches the tools of mindset work. And I still coach women on the side. It's like, it's not really like, it's not on the side. It's part of what I do. It's just that I work with a couple clients at a time, teaching, both teaching them the Enlifted method, coaching them with the Enlifted method, and still doing those pieces of educating and teaching about mind, body, health, all the things through my podcast or through just my life, my Instagram, my life. And it's been one of the most fulfilling things because now, I look back at that girl who wanted to change her whole life and career. And I'm like, oh, congrats, you did it. Like, fantastic job. And I'm excited about it and I'm lit up by it. And I love it. I love that this is what I get to do and that I, dare to make those bold moves and get over here and make it happen. So, it's been quite the story.
What happened on that phone call that made such the big shift? Was there a specific, thing that someone said, or was it just as the conversation went, it started to see, oh yeah, this is a different method that I can go with, still fulfilling the vision that I have?
Yeah, great question. So when I got on the phone and I was having the conversation with Adam, like I didn't know him yet. That was my first interaction with him. And I knew Mark and I had been friends with Mark before I took the certification. So like I was very familiar with Mark, and so I was like, so this is my first interaction with Adam. And two things happened. The first thing was that as I was relaying to him, like what type of strategy and plan, like, so he told me what they were looking for, what they were currently doing. And then in that moment, when I was relaying to him, like, oh, this is what I would do. This is the strategy. This is the plan that I would implement and interact. When by me articulating that out loud, I realized how capable I was of that job. And then I was like, oh yeah, wow, I know a lot about marketing and I know a lot about building a business. And okay, like I could be really good at this. And rather than how I think a lot of people interact in those scenarios, well, not a lot, sometimes people interact in those scenarios of like, can I do this? Am I good enough? Oh man, what would I do? How will I handle it? The imposter syndrome creeps in. And so similarly to that, what I said in my weight loss journey, like I knew what to do. So I did it. So
Mhm.
that was the first thing. And then the second thing that happened was I got to know Adam and I got to know, like, I felt in me that it was like, this is the right thing to do. And I don't know why yet. And I don't know all the answers yet. And I know that this is going to add something to my life.
Mhm.
And it was, it was right around the timing was also a key piece because I can't recall if it was like, I think we were like, this is the end of 2020. So, yeah, that's exactly it. So, it was the end of 2020 when we started this conversation because I was managing a gym that was closed.
Yeah.
So I was, the facility was closed for an entire year in Manhattan in the city for the pandemic. And so I still had a job and I was doing a lot of coaching and I was still like doing the things I needed to be doing to like keep the facility like not operational but open.
Right. Yeah. I know it was a weird ass
It was a
time.
weird time.
Yeah.
So I had time. So I had some time that I could invest into it and I wanted some cash. So I was like, cool, you guys are going to pay me. I know what to do.
Right.
This is going to be fun. It feels good. It feels good to me. I got to know you. I could see how this was like I could see one step ahead that it was like, this is going to teach me something and this is going to help me do something. And it's going to put cash in my pocket. And I like this guy. And I already know I like Mark and it's putting me in the direction of the goal that I already had set for myself. And so it was just like, yeah, okay, cool, let's do it. And and I was like, okay, well, wherever it goes, it goes. Like it's a contract at that point in time, it was a contractor position. It wasn't like I wasn't committing to anything significant. Like I was
Right.
just, okay, we'll do this for a couple months. And I said to them, I was like, guys, I have this other job when the gym opens, like I'm not gonna have this time. So I had an out too.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I didn't want that out when the gym did reopen. I was like, no, guys, actually, the gym's reopening. You got to figure out how to bring me on full time. And they were like,
Right.
oh, we got to figure out how to bring you on full time. So let's, so it worked.
I love it.
Um,
Yeah.
but
You
yeah, time
mentioned,
and knowing what I wanted.
yeah, you mentioned there in of giving your personal experience to people and then that wasn't working. And I think that is a plight. It's something that happens a lot with, people where something works so well for you that you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I found the secret sauce. This is how to go. Now I'm going to tell everybody, and everybody's going to be on the Kim method now and roll with it. But that's a really challenging thing. And it's hard to kind of figure out and navigate what direction to go in and why isn't this working for someone else. Was that a challenging kind of process for you, thinking through that of like, well, I did this, like this worked really well for me. Why isn't this working for other people?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things going on there. Is one that's where every coach starts, like always. Like whether you think you're a coach or not, you every human starts from a place of because it's genuine. This worked for me. I want you to have it.
Mhm.
Like I want you to have these tools. I want you to have this feeling. I want you to have this experience. Like here, this is what I did. This is the map. Right? If you ask for directions of how to get to your favorite restaurant, like you would tell people, turn here, go left, do this, right? So it's the same thing. It's you want to give the directions or you want to give the instructions of what worked for you. And that's not a bad thing inherently. That's what sharing stories are for. That's what, me sharing what worked is a piece of the puzzle, right? So that people can hear it and be expanded by it and then say, "Oh, okay, like that's an option." And that was that was how I what I was doing when I was asking these other coaches around me who were full-time coaches, how did you do this? How did you do this? So I collected a lot of perspectives and a lot of
Right.
input. And then the second piece of this is that if you're a coach and you're in that position and then you're asking the question like, well, why isn't this working? That's also a good thing because you're recognizing that like I'm showing up to this from this way and it's not working. Why? Right? That's a great question to ask because that means that you're committed to your craft and that means you're committed to your client's results. Now, the hard part in this, and this is where you got to be paying attention, is to not make that question of why isn't this working, make it mean something about me that I'm not good enough and that I don't have the tools and that I'm not
Slap an
capable.
identity on top of it. Mhm.
Right, exactly. Like it doesn't mean you don't have to make it mean that you're bad, right? Which is I was doing that. I was like, this isn't working. Why? And but I wasn't asking why from a place of how can like I mean, I'm sure part of me was asking why from a place of how do I get better? But for the most part, it was like, why don't they listen to me? Why
Mhm.
can't they do this? Pointing the language out towards the client, like it's their fault. And
Mhm.
part of what Enlifted did for me was help me turn that language back in on myself and say, no, wait, it's not their fault. I'm the professional here.
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
So I am the professional. Like I'm responsible for like with my clients. That's a cool language game to do on this topic is most coaches think that they're responsible for their clients. And we use this language game. You can write that sentence down, ask yourself how it feels. I'm responsible for my clients, or ask yourself this one word change. I'm responsible with my clients.
Mm.
And a very different feeling is like, okay, if I'm responsible with my clients means that I have responsibility to show up with my best tools and my ability to work with them and meet them where they are and help guide and shape them. And then there's 50% responsibility on the other side of the table too, which is that they're responsible for doing the work with me, right? Implementing, following the plan. And so that, that was huge for me was that when I learned how to recognize that what was fueling a big part of my imposter syndrome was the fact that like I made me not having the education yet or the system yet mean that I was bad at something. And that's not
Mm.
imposter syndrome, that's beginner syndrome. That's I don't know yet, not I'm not good enough. It's
Right.
a distinction. And so and that was part of the reason why I was like, oh my God, I need to teach this other coaches. Like I know they're doing this. Like I talk to them, I interact with them. I've been in other coaching mentorship programs. I had colleagues and peers and friends, and I was noticing that we all felt the same way, and we were all having this a similar experience. And it just like got like when I learned these tools, I was like, oh, this is the piece that every coach in health, wellness, fitness space, like even if they never use it with their clients, it would benefit them to be able to uh, separate themselves from their clients
Mm,
and recognize that, like we're not enmeshed and completely entangled with them. We're two separate, solid humans. And so I can come over here and help you, and but I have to help myself first. Like I have to know
right.
how to interact and how to hold myself and have that identity. Like, yeah, exactly the word you said. That's exactly it. Like mindset and identity are pretty close. Um, they're almost synonyms to me. Like,
Yeah. I'm glad you brought this topic up on this because I think it's so fascinating that it's like it's the difference between being a GPS system and being a personal driver.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
well, it's and it feels it's funny too, like as a coach, it feels really good when you sign someone up and they're like, I trust you, and it feels like, oh yes, I'm needed. Like it's filling a void of something that's in there if you're not careful. But it's also very easy to then wrap your person in like a coat and be like, I got you in anything. And even if they are successful in getting some objective metrics, you've also subconsciously enabled them at the same time and they have no idea how they got there. And then that yo-yo cycle of success starts. And this is why, as you mentioned, with a lot of these women who are asking like, what's your secret, and they were up and down in this 10
yeah,
pounds here and there, because it's like, here, I'll give you the responsibility of doing this for me, and I'll see some metrics going forward. But then eventually you just slide back into old habits because you haven't really changed anything because you're not autonomous in it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's the like we all are looking for the magic pill. Like we're all that's why that's why big pharma is making as much money as it is because everybody wants the
Yeah.
magic pill. And the reality of this is that like the magic pill is ownership and hard work and consistency and commitment and doing the thing, right? It's the reps. The reps are the magic pill.
Mhm.
Um and showing up for yourself. And we I think about fitness and health coaching as being the Trojan horse for mindset and personal development because people know that they need to fix their health. They know that they want to lose some weight. They know they don't feel good about themselves. And maybe they don't want to go to therapy because they don't feel like, well, there's nothing really wrong with me, but I just don't feel very good. It's your physiology. Like when you don't have a vital alive body, your
Mhm.
mind is going to suffer. You will have anxiety. You will have depression. You will not feel happy and fulfilled and motivated in your life. Like your body has to be tended to and taken care of. So people know to go to the gym. They know that they want to change their eating habits and behaviors. Like the knowledge is there generally. Um, the awareness is there generally. The part that gets confusing is there's so much knowledge about how to do it and what to do. And, try this method, try that method, do this diet, do this workout, do this thing, right? And everything is marketed to you as lose 7 pounds in 7 days, like fast, or the best spot of your life in your first month of membership, right? Like it's like the marketing is there to like to play into that you want the result now.
Mhm.
And so people want the fast track and they want to do the thing and they want the result and it's just
Yeah.
everything
Do you
in life.
think they want it like in the fast track, or is it because we are such an abundance and kind of we're fattened so much from knowledge? It's almost like we're starved for wisdom. Like, wisdom is
Yeah, great point.
wisdom is refinement. And do you think it's that people are so lost or kind of so confused that they just don't know what direction to go because there's a million different optimization gurus out there that are chirping the best method in their ear? And sometimes at that point, you're just like, hands up, like, I don't even know what to do, so I'm just going to freeze. It's not fight or flight, it's just more freeze in that moment.
Absolutely. We talk about this from a variety of different angles and Enlifted about paradox of choice, which is
Mhm.
that the more choices we have, the less likely we are to make one. And so, yeah, absolutely. If you had two options of this place or that place, it's easier to pick. It's also easier to pick when you know what your options are. So even if you have more options, if you write all those options down of what it could be, and then go through a process of like being like, okay, well, here's seven options.
Mhm.
about how I could get healthy. All right, let me rank them from most likely to do it to least likely to do it. Okay, cool. All right, now here's the seven. All right, and then okay, so the bottom ones that it's like least likely to do it, cross off any that I realize I'm never going to actually do that. I just
Mm.
cross off the freaking list. And then I end up with three that I'm likely to do and that it's possible. And now I can pick, right? And that's a process of working out your mindset versus that's a process, that's an internal dialogue conversation. That's a process of like decision making and getting clear. And most people go, they're it's driven from an emotional place because we're emotional
Right.
beings. And it's harder to when the story is running in your head that gosh, I'm such a piece of crap, man, this year I'm finally going to get healthy, oh, like man, I just wish I could get back to where I was 5 years ago. And
Mhm.
we have these internal conversations with ourselves that are putting ourselves down and putting ourselves in a victim mentality or putting ourselves in a place of like not having agency over our own decisions and actions. The we talk about soft talk. That's a lot of what is happening in these conversations is soft talk are words that the specific words that are going to create lack of clarity and indecision, and some of them are like kind of, maybe, possibly, probably, someday, hopefully, try, right? And
Right.
there's more. And those are the ones that are immediately coming to my head. I'm like, I could look at my soft talk keyword board up here. I should.
Right.
That's a big one too. And so we utilize that as unconsciously. This isn't, most people don't know that they're saying it that way, um, as an out for ourselves, or it does create that lack of clarity and there is no confidence. And so it becomes this doom loop of thoughts.
Mhm.
And, we Enlifted solves that. Here's a way to get out. Here's a way to recognize and observe the thoughts and then not just like, not judge them, just observe them and then say, okay, I can wait. What happens if I change the words? And if I
Right.
change some of the words, now I see a different possibility. I see a different picture. Oh, I never thought of it that way before. Well, you couldn't because you were using the same words. You've always
Right.
been saying the same things. The internal dialogue is a broken record of the top greatest hits of what we say to ourselves. Like it doesn't change that much. You know what the things you say to yourself are. You just have to observe them. And then once you see those that broken record, or the top 100 greatest hits of the way I shit talk myself, when I can see that, then I can change. I could, okay, let me write those statements down. Oh, cool. Like, let me, oh, could I say that? Oh, no, that's not accurate. Oh, wait. Now we're thinking about our thinking. And now we're
Mhm.
starting to shift. We're shifting that mindset as the story we tell ourselves, right? How do we tell a different story? Use different words.
Yeah.
It seems so simple and so like obvious that it's annoying.
Well, it's it's funny, Kim. I first heard of like the soft talk kind of language from Mark when he came on about a year ago, and speaking with quite a few people in the community of Enlifted, started to dive in like what is this really all about? And I was and I'm a dissector of like what does this really mean from here,
Yeah,
and realized that we use these words so kind of flim flam and like just as part of us. And I was like, how does this actually really impact the way that we speak? And I realized like it's so easy to throw in these words because it allows you to stay on like the teeter-totter of not really making a decision one way to another. And if you don't make a decision, then if you fail, you really didn't fail because you didn't fully commit to it. So you're kind of saving yourself
correct.
from the disappointment of maybe giving it your all. And that's always what I'm curious about with with mindset is like how much of it is taking this emotional side of it and actually just getting very objective and very rational on it. And I think the most challenging part I've seen from doing this myself and working with people is it's a very different feeling you get when you start eliminating these like words. It's not the same emotional response that you get. And I think sometimes we can get almost addicted to that emotional response of like that, almost like a trauma spiral, like a healing spiral of like, if I don't feel this, then what do I actually feel? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And I'll explain a little bit of the mechanics of what is going on here and
Mhm.
I'll go slow because this might get a little technical and follow me best you can, listeners. So
Please.
so our language, right? When I say our language, what I mean by that is what we think, what we speak, and what we write down. So Mark has this great way of explaining it is it's right between your ears, it's right under your nose, and it's right at the tips of your fingertips, right? So what
Mm.
we think, what we speak, what we write down. And that's words. And our words and our language, same thing, influence our feelings and emotions, our imagination, our physiology, right? Because that's where it starts. We start to feel different. Our body language, we express through our body when we have a certain energy moving because of these words, and our breathing. So, what happens, and breathing is part of physiology, but I explicitly state that one separately because we're going to talk about that
Mhm.
specifically. So, our language influences feelings and emotions, our imagination, right? So, what's the feelings and emotions happen in a body? The imagination happens in the mind, like our mind's eye. We can see a picture in a movie based on what people are saying. The energy, right? The electricity moving through your body and your breathing. So when we say certain words in a certain way, right, which means like the specifics, there's the actual stringing together of the sentence, the language pattern that people use, and then there's the things like intonation and how we oh my god, what's that word? How we like the tone of our voice, and the energy follows the words. So if you've been in a conversation with somebody who's very calm and relaxed, you're generally calm and relaxed, right? Like we match that energy. If you're in a conversation with somebody who's a little bit confrontational or is upregulated and is a little bit frustrated and mad, right? And is pointing their energy and their words in a way that's like coming at you, what do? You get a little defensive, right? You try to protect. You're like, oh, ah. And and so like the energy follows the words. And so when you say certain things in a certain way, and we'll use soft talk as the example here, and then we can, if you want, talk about victim mentality and about the more way that goes. So the soft talk example is if I say something like, "Man, I really should get into the gym." Let's track two things there. Let's track the actual words. What I said, I really should get into the gym. And then the way that I said it, which this is the other piece that coaches like we all know this. This is like we can hear it in people, but we have to bring our attention to it is like, man, I really should get in the gym. So now I'm asking, well, what does that feel like? What does that feel like? It feels like I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself. It feels like I'm not doing it. It feels
You're
like
doing something wrong. Yeah.
like yeah, exactly. And so I can pick up on more cues on that from what I actually said and how it was said. And then I could also look at the breathing, like how people are breathing. I could look at how their body language is moving. Like I can observe. The point of this is to observe and not to believe the thoughts, but to observe the thoughts. And so with soft talk, we can change it. And the easiest thing with soft talk is to take it out. And should is a special example. Maybe I shouldn't have used that one, but we could do it. I really want to get into the gym. Okay, two different things. The should we do a specific thing with called the should detox, and we move it through 4 steps of how to get someone out of that should energy. And so the way that this so exactly what you're saying is like when we use soft talk, it like softens it up. We're not fully committed, so we give ourselves an out. We have an opportunity, like we didn't go all the way there. We didn't really say that we were definitely going to do it. So if I change my mind, no big deal. And for the most part, the soft talk isn't universally bad either, right? Because sometimes you're not sure yet. So
Right.
yeah, maybe I'll be at the party on Saturday, but I have a handful of things I got to get done first, and I'm just not sure if it's going to line up. That's different. That's intentional use of soft talk. Like
Right.
maybe we can do that later, or yeah, I might get to that today. Like that's intentional use of soft talk.
Mhm.
So it's not that we need to, or when it is intentional use of soft talk, it's not all bad. It's just that we want to observe how the words are moving the energy. And so
Mhm.
if you want an energy of commitment and you want energy of being solid and you want to take your attention and bring it to something and follow through on it, if you're using soft talk, that's virtually impossible
Mhm.
because the energy follows the words. And so that's the thing that like we have to take a pause and look at and see. And then when we see it, then we're like, oh yeah, wow, I do use a lot of soft talk around this thing that I really do want to commit to. So what do I do? Remove the soft talk, remove the
Mhm.
soft talk keywords. And then what's that going to do? It's going to elicit a different feeling in your body. And it's probably going to scare you because it is different. And if you say something different and you do something different, you're going to get something different. And that's the loop that you're mentioning about like a trauma response of like always being stuck in the same place. You know, people who are stuck, they don't really want to stay stuck. I don't think people actually want to, at our core, I don't think we want to stay stuck. Some people do. Um, we just are afraid of what's going to be different, even if it's the thing we
Right.
want, even if it's
Yeah,
what we
it's the
want,
the
it's
devil you
changing
know
different.
versus the devil you don't know. Mhm.
Totally, totally. So yeah, I said a lot there. So please.
I think it's fascinating. So I mean, getting into, what it's always interesting to me about mindset and really working on building a stronger mindset is it's challenging for a lot of us to be objective with progress. Like you go to the gym or like you go in nutrition, it's like, oh, I lost weight or I got put more weight on the bar. It's an objective thing that you can see. But somebody says, I want to have a stronger mindset. We all know what you're trying to say, but really you have no clarity what the fuck you're actually saying, from there. So
Yes.
when people are coming to you, and I guess the question would be when people are coming to you specifically, I know you work with a lot of women and say, I want to work on my mindset. Do they, when you start diving into that and asking them some questions, do they usually know what that means, or is it more they really have no idea kind of where they're starting from and they just lack a lot of clarity about what direction they go and maybe just feeling really lost in what direction they need to take?
Yeah, great question. So there's I have two kind of two ways that this shows up when clients want to change something. Some of them will articulate and say, I know I need to change my mindset. And those people know, like, what does that mean? It means I know that the way that I'm thinking about this and the way that it's like that is what's blocking me. I know that the way that I'm operating and I'm thinking in this story is what's blocking me. So some people will say it like that. And when they say they want to change their mindset, they generally just mean, but I don't know how, right? So that's what the unsaid piece is. I really need to work on my mindset. And what they're not saying is, but I don't know how. So when they come to you as a coach, or when they're looking for help in that way from you, from a practitioner. And the other way this shows up is the majority of the time, which is I have this problem and I need help. Um, I don't like how I feel about this. I don't enjoy how this feels. I'm stuck here. I feel really blocked here. I am, I just don't feel happy or fulfilled or I'm struggling, right? Those are the words that most people use when they have a problem with their mindset. They know the symptoms, but they don't know the cause. Um, or they might be like slightly aware that the way they're thinking about it is part of the problem, but most of us like don't go to that. The deeper thinkers do, but
Mhm.
not
Right.
everybody does. And so there's this idea of like, what is the problem? And with my own clients, when I work with women, usually that problem is I don't feel good about myself. I'm not happy in my job.
Mhm.
I'm not making enough money. I can't find a relationship that I like. There's something wrong with me. I'm upset, I'm mad, I'm tired, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm anxious. Like they're going to give me that. They're not going to say it's my mindset, but I need help with my mindset. Um so when so people know symptoms, and as a coach who works on mindset, the main piece is to hear them, like hear what the problem is and track the story that they're running about it, because we all have a story. We're all telling ourselves a story. We're all telling ourselves a story about stuff, and we're all saying this is what this means about me, and a lot of that is subconscious, and a lot of that you don't even know, like you just don't realize that that's what's going on in there. And so another way to describe, people are like, what do you mean it's a story? I get that question sometimes because people are like,
Yeah.
what is this? What do you mean it's a story?
Yeah.
It's literally, how are you thinking about the thing?
Right.
And how, or another way for a coach, you might hear, what are their excuses that they're telling
Mhm.
you about why they can't, or why it hasn't worked in the past, or why they're never going to get there, and why all of these things that are, you might hear and be like, well, that's an excuse. No, it's not an excuse. It's a story. That's what they believe.
Right.
So believe your client that that's the story that they believe. Like, believe that they believe it, but don't believe the story, and don't
Mhm.
label it as an excuse. Change the story. That's the job of a mindset coach, is to change that story. So if a woman that I'm working with comes to me and says, I don't feel fulfilled in the work that I'm doing. And I have all these dreams of, I've always wanted to open my own coffee shop and have like art stuff in there for people to do. And I don't know how I'm ever going to make enough money to do that. And like, I just really like, so I have to keep this job and, and suck it up. But I just need to find another way in another way in my life where I can be fulfilled.
Mhm.
And so when I hear that, I hear, okay, got it. So the mindset, the story there is, I know what I want, but I can't have it because of this. And that's not always true,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
No.
she believes that. She believes that, but it's like, well, can I help her? Right. And it's not my job to prove to her that it is true. And it's not my job to prove to her how to do it. My job as a mindset coach is to help her look at it from a variety of different angles and to open up her field of possibilities about how to get what she wants.
Right.
And the way to do that is by helping her with her own internal dialogue and her own stories about herself. And if I can do that, then she's going to start taking different actions, and she's going to have different feel, and she's going to see a new possibility. And I'm
Mhm.
not attached to what that possibility is, and I don't care like what she does with it. Like, that's being separate from the client, right? I'm not like, well, we're going to get that coffee shop open and you're going to leave your job in 6 months.
Right. The
That's not
cheerleader mantra.
right.
Yeah.
That's not it. What I'm doing is I'm like helping her get into her own feelings and emotions, her imagination, the energy in her body, her breathing, and I'm shifting that by shifting her words. And if for all my law of attraction gurus out there,
Mhm.
if we shift the story and we shift the words, we shift the feelings and emotions, we shift the imagination, we shift the energy in the body, we shift the breathing patterns, what's that called? Manifestation.
Yeah. I
Right?
love I love how your whole tone changed as soon as Law of Attraction came in, and it was very soft and very inviting. And it's interesting.
So
It's interesting, Kim. This was a while ago. When Joel Cochran came on, I know you know Joel.
I
Um,
do.
and could not stop thinking about this forever after he talked about the role of a coach. And the best thing that we can do is instill confidence. And it's not that we have a self-confidence struggle. And I was like, okay, what the hell does that mean? And I started
Yeah.
going down, and there was an interesting study that it came about of, a few thousand people asking about the grand goals that they have of like, this is what you want to do, like if magic wand, like what would you love to have? And then asked, do you believe that you're capable of doing this? And 80% of people said that they didn't. And it's
Yeah.
like, so it's just what you're saying right there. It
That's
is.
why 80% of the people don't have it.
And they don't exactly. And so it's that story that we're telling ourselves. But it's often, I think, when we have conversations like this, it's so easy to think about mindset in a theoretical way, but the way that you broke that down into actual practical steps of working on this and actually changing your story over. And the first way to do it is to start with the words and start getting that down. But one of the things that you've talked about a few times is the power of journaling. And
Hmm.
what I thought was so interesting is I know on your Instagram, you've just released some of your own
Yeah, I
journal
did.
the last 10 years. First off, how does that feel putting yourself out there? And two,
Insane.
why did you feel really compelled to do that?
It feels insane. So I have been journaling for the last 10 years of my life, and I have a trunk of journals right here. And that trunk I've had this trunk and I've just been adding the journals to the trunk for 10 years. And it was my coffee table. And it- all the time I've been doing it, I have felt compelled to share it, but I haven't felt comfortable to share it. I felt compelled to share it. I didn't feel comfortable to share it. And so over the last 2 years, honestly, that voice doesn't go away, right? This is another, and people relate to this with mindset. You have something you want to do, and the voice doesn't really go away. It's still there. It's still something I was hearing and observing within myself. Like, I really want to share these. I really want to share these. I really want to share these. But it felt so vulnerable and it
Yeah.
felt so out of my story. Like, I was like, I'm a health coach, I'm a fitness coach, I'm a mindset coach. Like, why do people want to read my journal? Like, that's absurd. Like, you know, so it's like, so I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, and I was scared of it. And I still a little bit am, but I just decided that I'm following the fear on this one because it feels good. It feels good, exciting, scary, like not
Yeah.
like terrifying scary. And so what I did was I started seeking out ways to get reps at the vulnerability of sharing my writing. And I went to writing workshops, and the first one I went to, I remember how scared I was. Like, I was like, I can't even believe I'm going to read this out loud. And I did. And afterwards I was on such a wild high that I was like, I got to do this again. So I went back. And then a friend of mine who I've known for a long time, she started doing writing classes, and she's an Enlifted coach too. So she, like, obviously she knows what I know. Like, it's like an easy, like, oh, okay, cool. Bryn Daler is her name. She started doing these writing circles for women, which is just we write and then we read them, and that's it. And there's no feedback and there's no judgment and there's no nothing. Like, you just do that. And I was like, okay, all right, here's another opportunity for me to get into scary rep. So I'm going to go. And I love Bryn. I have that like familiarity and confidence with her. And so I was like, okay, right, scary, but let's go. And then that one workshop turned into every month I started going to that workshop with her. And so I got confidence by reps and like exposure therapy
Yeah. Mhm.
in a lot of ways. And and honoring the voice I was hearing was that I want to share this, I want to share this, I want to share this. And it's and I also got clear about the fact that I was like, Kim, your job is to talk about words and thoughts. So your journals are absolutely part of that, is on brand.
Mhm.
Like, that's on brand. And the Enlifted method has influenced my journaling so significantly, which I will definitely speak to that part as well, because it's important for people to hear, people who like journaling and like self-reflection. I'll share a piece about that. But ultimately, I kept hearing the voice, I kept following the feeling, and then I just was like, I'm going to do this. And 2, 3 days ago, I took this trunk that was downstairs and I was using it as my coffee table, and I like got down underneath it, picked it up like it was a sandbag, because like I'm a strong girl and I like know how to engage my core and use my legs. And so I got underneath it and like picked it up like a strongman sandbag, carried it upstairs, plopped it down in my office, and I was like, all right, let's do it. And I knew that like I don't really know what the project is that I'm going to create with it and from it, but I know that I have to start.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the pieces that another Enlifted piece is like start and keep going. So I started journaling 10 years ago. I kept going journaling up until now. I'm going to keep going with it. And now I'm starting this iteration of it, which is to open that trunk up for other people to learn from and experience what the practice has been for me. And the way that two pieces of the way that the work that I do, like the Enlifted method is not something that you do once and it works. The Enlifted
Mhm.
method is a practice, and the Enlifted method is a coaching style for you to use with your clients, and it's a practice in that way, but it's also a personal practice
Right.
of I'm observing my thoughts. I can self-coach in here because I know how the mind works. I know how the mechanics of storytelling work, and I can observe myself. And so journaling, writing down your thoughts is step number 1 of Enlifted, is write it down so you can externalize it, so that you can see it and that it is separate from you. And when you do that, then you can edit and draft, So whether that's writing by hand or writing in a Google Doc or a note app on your phone or whatever, the first step is to get it out of your head and get it on paper or digital paper. And when you do that, then you can observe, and then you can
Mhm.
decide how you want to change your words. And so my journaling practice before I learned Enlifted was a journaling practice of victim mentality, of
Yeah.
all the things in my life that weren't going the way I wanted, how horrible it felt, why I was stuck there. And like that's like, I mean, that's the first 5 years of the 10 years is that. And what I was doing was making a case against myself. I was already making a case against myself in my own head. And then I was putting it on paper and I'm like, here's the proof. Here's the proof.
Yep.
This is the
Mhm.
proof. Like the proof that I'm not good enough, the proof that he's never going to love me, the proof that I'm never going to get what I want, the proof that I have to stay in this job, the proof that I'm always going to be fat, right? That was that.
Mhm.
Then the first journal that I like the first like the one that like how do I say this? The one where it started to change was before Enlifted, but it was when I decided I was going to lose the weight. So when I did that, I unknowingly changed the story. And that's part of what worked because I started saying, I'm going to do this. I'm showing up to this. I'm committed to this for myself. I started using solid language unknowingly, because that was the energy, like the energy that I wanted towards that thing. And then once I started to, and the victim stories were still in that same journal. Like it was like one page of like, I'm doing this thing. And the next page of like, you suck. You're never going to get good. Like,
Right.
how dare you? Like, so it's like the internal battle was in those journals. And then when I started learning the Enlifted method, the stories really started to change in my journaling because I was like, oh, wow, that's a victim story. Okay. Well, what do? I wrote it down. Now I can edit it. I can also unwind the emotions and the feelings about it. I can change the picture in my head by changing the words. I can change the energy by changing the words. And it's not as the method isn't as simple as just, write something that you don't believe. That's not what this is. It's a matter of getting where you do believe, taking it through a process of emotional downregulation, which is, step one, I said, is write it down. Step two is read it out loud. Step three is read it slower. Step four is read it with a breath in between every sentence that you wrote. And that is a process of emotional downregulation because what's happening is you're going to go on an emotional roller coaster. Most people journal when they are upset or maybe they're happy and they're excited, right? But like we do it when there's a feeling there.
Yeah.
And so and that's where all good art starts, is from a feeling. So when we start the process of writing and journaling, like there's a feeling and we're trying to get it out either, get it out because we don't want to feel it anymore or get it out because it feels so good. And so the process of that is, once you externalize the story and then you take it through that 4-step process that I mentioned, now that's how I have to go through that process of emotional downregulation before I can start changing the story. Because when I'm upregulated and I'm emotional, I'm attached. So I believe it. Attachment is the same thing as belief. So if I can,
Mhm.
okay, and I can create some space and I can get a little bit of clarity about what's on the page and I can see, based on the language patterns of conflict language, which is soft talk, which is negations. I mean, this is again like technical, but it's like cool to kind of hear the complexity and the simplicity of this method. The negations, the soft talk, projections, which is like me turning all my language out onto somebody else versus taking ownership and accountability for myself. Anywhere where I'm being dramatic, like dramatics, pressure language, the binary language, which is making a picture black and white, right? So when I can start to identify the patterns of what the story what the patterns that are holding the story together, then I can start to unwind it. And then from there, so my journals, a lot of it after I learned became this process of self-coaching and really, really changing, like unwinding all these beliefs about myself that I had held for so long. And then once you unwind enough of them, then you can use the method in the opposite way, which is to build yourself up. So now I can write the stuff that I don't quite believe yet, but I want to believe. And I can do it. I can take it through that same 4-step. And that's going to, instead of zooming me, like bringing me down from the emotional peak of like frustration and anger and resentment and the stuck stuff and the deep, like, oh, those emotions, when I write down something that feels light and bright and happy, and this goes back to your point about celebrating progress, celebrating wins, if I can give myself a compliment and then take it through that same 4-step process, it does the opposite. It turns the emotions up, it turns the volume up on my ability and my capability and my excitement for the thing. And so, again, it's like it's changing the words changes the feeling, changes the
Mm.
words changes the energy. And most people don't know that this is a game you can play. Like we just don't know. We're not taught it. This is not like I wasn't taught it until I met
Yeah.
Martin. And then I was taught it and I was like, "Oh my God." Like
Yeah.
just
That's
it's like a big light
that
bulb.
was one of the big takeaways I got from seeing your journals out there, and I read through them this morning on your story. And one of the most powerful things that I took benefit from is, and I say this in admiration, is it's very raw and very, there's
Yeah.
no set structure on it. And I don't mean raw meaning just vulnerable and like the words that you're saying out. It's not just an emotional pour, but there's there's spots where it looks like an essay. There's spots when it like there's one word on one line. Sometimes there's skipping. So there's no set like this is how you journal type thing. And I think that's where so many get stuck on doing something thinking it's supposed to be this Dear Diary, today I did XYZ type thing. And it's like, no, just getting the reps in and just working on it every day and then going back. I've been a journaler now for 5 years straight, almost every day, which means there's probably 1,500 times I've sat down with a pen and paper on a blank page. And lots of times it's like such dribble and nothing that's going on that's really worth remembering. But every once in a while, there's some, profundity and there's like some power, from that.
Yeah.
But it's just getting the reps in. And that's what I thought was so cool about you putting that out. But the other piece as well, Kim, I thought was so big is sharing that with somebody else, as you said, and really the power of community. I'm so interested in because I've seen this shift in personal development and personal growth is such this solitary tale that people are saying like it needs to be like me against the world type work and like I don't need anybody
Yeah.
else and realizing that
Mode.
from that is so not the case. Like you need good people around you. How powerful and important has it been for you in having a community of people to share in this journey and continuously, grow in the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying that the journals are raw because that is my exact intention. So
Yeah.
I really received that compliment and that's part of that was part of what drove me to share it was like I want people to see the rawness of this. And I do have some pages on lined paper that do look more like a Dear Diary thing. Um and I have both. I actually at any given time I'm working in like three different notebooks, four probably. I'm looking at the ones on my desk. I have like my work notebook. I have my the one that is more Dear Diary. That's like what I call a brain dump, where I'm just stream of conscious writing. Then I have the sketchbooks, which are more they're a blank page without lines, and that's where those words like dance across the page.
I
And
love you so much more. I thought I was the only one that did that. I have like five notebooks that I roll with. So it's
you gotta compartmentalize somehow. And yeah, so I have like different and I use different pens that I like for different things
yeah.
and sometimes I like markers and sometimes I like, colors and some, it's like I've truly like embraced this like artistic expression with it as well as a personal development thing. And that stemmed from the book The Artist's Way, which I read 4 or 5 years, could have been longer than that. Probably could have been 6 years ago even. Um, and I read that, and it was about the practice that I took from it was about stream of conscious writing for 3 pages every day, regardless. First thing in the morning, morning pages, and that practice really taught me how to like just get through the junk. Like get anything out on the page and get through the junk so that I could get to the art feeling. And so I do all of it. I do all of it. And like um now I'm forgetting the question that you asked me.
About the community and kind of
The
connecting with
community.
other
Yes.
people.
Okay. Yes. Perfect. Absolutely. So one of the things that for the longest time, my writing practice was so secret. It was like I didn't want anyone around me while I was doing it because I was so afraid of what they were going to read on the page. I didn't want to tell people that I did it because it felt like something that was just for me. And then it was kind of like, oh, well, wait, no, I'm doing this thing and it's working. So like I can tell people, oh yeah, you could journal too. But much like you said, people don't like that's kind of vague. Like, what do I write in here? What am I
Mhm.
supposed to do? And what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And so I So I really didn't have a writing community or a community of people that were journalers in the way that I was. And that kept me very closeted. Like it kept it super private. And even through the process of me saying I wanted to share, I didn't have people around me that were sharing. And it's hard to be the one to go first. So I thought to myself, okay, all right, like that's what eventually when I got to the stage where I was like, all right, let me go find some writing workshops and let me go like hear other writers. And what that was a permission slip for me to say, oh, wow, there are other people that think like me and feel like me and who do what I do. And oh my God, they're so brave. Like, holy shit. And there's so much freedom in art and expression and writing that once I started to get different, because I was trying to look for someone to copy. I was trying to look for somebody who did it that I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. Oh, okay. That's safe, but this one isn't, right? And eventually what I learned when I started going to the writing workshops and listening to other writers or even taking on the identity of that I'm a writer, right? That was a huge piece. That was a huge to claim. And then taking that on and then getting to the place of like, oh, okay, I can share this because look at all of them sharing it. And wow, that's bold and that's brave. Holy shit, I don't think I could ever speak that out loud. But if I wrote it down, like that's the piece.
Hmm.
And so the real like taking the edge off was when I started sharing it in a community of women because
Yeah.
then I felt uncensored. Like I was like I can say the like the raw emotional stuff. I can say the kind of like secret, dirty, sexy stuff that like I wouldn't want every man to read. I can just if I get emotional when I'm reading it or when I'm writing it, that's safe. And I had to do that in a group of women first before I could get comfortable to just post it for everybody to see and for men to read too. Like, because,
Hmm.
something about this like safety that had to
Sure.
get established in me first. And, and I still like, like I still feel there's certain pieces that I don't want to share, or there's certain places that I would share one thing and not another. And like, the goal for me would be eventually to just be so comfortable with it
Hmm.
and so comfortable with the story that I can share it anywhere and that I can let anyone read it. And that's what I've been that feeling of freedom in
Hmm.
my art and my expression and in my thoughts and in my mindset, which to me it's like pretty much all the same things. Like like that feeling of freedom and being so fully seen and so fully vulnerable and so fully open, like that's the feeling that I've heard since the beginning of like you have to share this, you have to share this, you have to share this because it's like my body wants that feeling of freedom,
Right.
like that true freedom. And I'm working on it. I'm working on
Yeah.
getting there.
I love, right. Well, we're all works in progress, right?
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
think, it's so powerful just what you said there because it's, especially when we're talking about mindset and clarity and being clear with your thoughts, it can feel so like you're alone in the struggles that you have and like you're the only one that's dealing with
Absolutely.
this. And I think that freedom that that you express right there, I think that only comes when you recognize that you're not alone. There's other people that are going through the same shit. They might be just as effed up in your mind as
Yeah.
as you are and stuff. But I think sharing that is so powerful. So I think
Yeah.
that was really huge. So um Kim Kesting, ladies and gentlemen. Kim, I really appreciate you coming on. I've been a fan of yours from afar, from all the work that you guys have done, you and Mark, with the Enlifted podcast and the community that you guys have built up. I think it's so powerful, and I think it's so valuable and necessary in the world, specifically in coaching, because I think coaching is the future. I think we can have such an impact in just the health of the community, and I think you guys are really leading from the front. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's like I agree. Coaching is the future for how we solve a lot of the, pain in our hearts and our bodies. And I love that this conversation brought both of those pieces together, that there's the head and the heart, the body and the heart, however you want to say it, like the writing, the art, the journaling, all of that stuff, that's the emotions, the things that are going like those pieces are equally important as our physical health and as our communities and all of that. Like I'm glad that that fluidity between those two like showed up in this conversation and that there's an opportunity for people to, you know, see it's all of that as part of being a healthy, happy human. It's all connected and it's all part of it. And yeah, so it's been super fun and thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a lot going on. If people want to check out what you're doing, kind of follow you, what's the best place that they can go and see everything?
Yeah, awesome. So, okay, so if you're interested in the Enlifted method for coaching, go to enlifted.me. That's our website. You'll find everything you want to find there. If you are wanting to connect with me personally, Instagram is the best place to do that. So my handle is at Kimberly.Kesting. And then, I share a lot of my life on there and I'm always on my stories every single day for the most part. And then I have a secret corner of my Instagram for the ladies called Girls Only. And so if you want to be a part of that, I talk a lot about, it's that community for women, right? And we're talking about all of these things like ourselves, our bodies, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. I'm big into like natural beauty and eating good food and all those things. And so if you want to participate in that part, ladies, shoot me a DM when you follow me and let me know you want in on the girls club. And it's just on my close friends. So that's the
I
best
love
place.
it. Perfect. Kim, thank you. Till next time. I'd love to have you come back on and keep diving into this. So, um,
Totally.
thank you so much, listeners. Thank you. Go follow Kim. I'll check you guys on the next one. All right, peace.